Corky, to a lot of us who have been brought up in a religious atmosphere, we're kind of taught to believe that this religion or that religion is right and it's the only way to go. Is this then, in your opinion or in their opinion, the only path, or you can take anyone you want, or do they
That's
all
a
lead to
beautiful
the same
question.
place, or what?
The instructions were that all the religions were necessary, and every one of them were right. And what they did is they fulfilled the evolutionary needs of the people that are involved in them. For the example, all the people that are in the Baptist church, their needs are being satisfied by that religion, and if they would follow the teachings of the Baptist church and start living those teachings, they would become better people within themselves. They would do as Christ said, love thy neighbor as thyself. And so the Baptist religion is very necessary. And so is the Lutheran and the Catholic and the Hindu and the Buddhist and Islam and the Jewish religion and the Mormon religion and all the religions. If the people will just live their religion, it works with their soul and changes their soul within. So this is what their teachings are people to really live their religion rather than just talk about it. And so there is no one right way. All the ways are right. And all of those religions lead us to a higher state of evolution. John.
Yeah, you mentioned that at that particular time of your
John?
Experience, that there was a wave of consciousness about pyramids and the science of the pyramids. And my question is, do you anticipate new waves coming in terms of Summum in the future, near future?
There will always be new waves of information, no matter which planet you happen to be on or which part of evolution you're in. Everything works that way. It's like in nature. You go to the beach and you see the waves come in on the beach and they land on the beach. It's like everything happens in cycles, like the sun comes up and it shines for a whole day and then it goes down and it's dark. And then it comes up again and it shines. Everything happens in cycles or in waves. It's a very natural thing for it to be that way. Just like in all of your lives, you've experienced waves of enlightenment throughout your life where you've become very attuned to yourself within. And then there's been dry spells where you haven't had any spiritual enlightenment at all or any changes come about, and a new wave comes about, and that will always happen. Another interesting thing, looking at John over here, I remember I wrote this article on meditation, and he told me, well, I am with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and I'm a teacher for him. And I said, who's he? I have never even heard of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi before John told me about him. And he says, oh, he's this great master from India that has come to save the world, or something like that. You told me. I don't know what it was exactly. But the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi did do an unbelievable, beautiful thing. He brought a meditation, a beginning meditation, to the people of the West. And in the West, everybody's running around trying to gather material things on the exterior world to try to gain some kind of satisfaction or to gain a pleasure that will never last. It'll always go away and there'll always be something new to gather. And the Maharishi brought a meditation to millions of people within the United States that allowed them to begin to turn within inside. And as he told them, oh, some of you may take several lifetimes, some of you may take few years, but as long as you start turning your attention within, that's all that's important. As long as you have a beginning to do this, this is what's important. And so he's done a wonderful thing, and he probably still is. Any other questions?
What were some of the things they told you?
The initial things they told me were about where God came from. And that's one of the lectures that we give, or one of the presentations, because that question hasn't been answered for most people in the world today. They're running around here in the West and they're saying, well, where did God come from? And they go to their religious leader or a wise person and says, oh, God's always been there. Don't worry about that. That's a mystery beyond your comprehension. And so they explained to me mathematically in a very beautiful and divine way, and perfect way, how everything came about and what it came from and why it is. And then put it all together in an example in nature and creation where it shows where God came from. And that was the greatest question that I think that it could have ever been answered. How did everything all come about, rather than there's this mystery that you can't understand. So
Mathematically, I probably couldn't understand it, but can you tell us?
oh yeah, it's called the
Where did it
lecture on
come from?
phi. And I would like to give that as a separate presentation on film. And we probably could do that here today if everybody's got enough time to stick around when we finish covering this topic. And I'll explain to you what they explained to me. It was real interesting. The first time you hear this explanation of where God came from, not always do you understand it the first time. But after a period of time goes by, it will click. And you'll say, wow, that's unbelievable. Like Ron Zephyr had been coming here for a year or so, and he'd heard the lecture on phi a number of times, and he was laying over there on the floor, and I was giving him a lecture while Donna and Kent were over there one afternoon, and I was explaining phi to Ron, and all of a sudden he saw it and understood what it was. And so when you first hear it, I wouldn't say, don't jump to a conclusion and say, I can't understand that. Just allow yourself to be open and allow it to be within you, and the answer will come right out of it. It sort of sings a little song to you and tells you why it is what it is and how it is. Wouldn't you say that is how it was with you, Mike?
Right. Yeah. I heard the phi lecture about half a dozen times in quick succession, like over a period of 3 or 4 months. And each time I thought I had it. But it
got larger each time.
Growing and growing and growing.
Isn't it nice to know how the universe came about and what it is and where it came from?
Right. And you
all
start
life?
to understand more about it than you're really told in words.
Right. You can't put the whole story into words.
No.
It sings, it talks back to you. After you look at it for a while and you see it, all of a sudden it'll start talking back to you, and you'll see it in everything that you look at. You'll see it in all nature. You'll see how phi interacts in these grand opposites. But any other questions on the... Yes, John?
Yeah, you have mentioned in a time or two that the time that you have spent with the Summa Individuals has been equivalent to about 50 years.
Yeah, everybody asked me how long I stayed there. And it seemed to me as if it were a lifetime every time I went there. What they told me, and what, except I know it wasn't. I know that I wasn't there a lifetime, except it was sort of like a shift in time, an alteration in time, where the amount of information and things that they explained to me and trying to get through to me so that I could understand it seems as if it were a lifetime.
Well, what I'm asking is, was there time spent there, like they would have a session with you and then they'd leave you to go to your room to rest or something? Did stuff like that happen?
It would be like a continuous day that lasted 50 years long. And then they would let up on me. And I would go try and recover. And as soon as I recovered and started to get cocky
Come
again...
back here, in other words, to recover.
Yeah. Then they would get me again. And you know how that happened on a regular basis. You were around for those years until I started complying. I didn't have a choice, per se, but now that I look back on it, I wouldn't have had anything done it any different than the way that it was done. It's sort of like when you go through an initiation here. It's the same thing, except on a slower scale. You say, what in the world, like you've said before, am I doing here? Explain that feeling.
Well, you reach a point where you think, this is too disconcerting or uncomfortable to keep doing this, and let's go somewhere else. I've had enough of this.
Right, that's exactly what it was like, except it was more intense.
Yeah.
Yes?
When was the last time they...
Got me?
Yeah.
It's about a year ago or so. I got real, I almost died. I thought I was going to die. I wasn't really dying. I just thought I was. And it was here in the pyramid, one weekend when everybody was having a class. And it took me about, several days to recover from that. It was the last time.